Welcome back, Raider Nation and my champions, and it's good to be back once again. We're going to be doing our Week 9 game preview of the Raiders versus the New York Giants at the Meadowlands tomorrow morning. 10 a.m. start here on the West Coast, 1 p.m. on the East Coast. Now, I titled this live stream, Bye Week Bounce Back or Falter, and as you know, we've historically had issues coming off the bye week and playing well. I'm going to give you my take on that. I'm also going to give you my 4 keys to the game like I normally do in my game previews. 2 on offense, 2 on defense. But first, I want to go into what... Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button on the OBS. It happens. Hey, Sandy B, how are you doing? Good to see you here. Good to see all of you here. Tonight, we're going to be doing our game preview of the Raiders versus the Giants. Hey, Earth Daughter, good to see you as well. And if you're not familiar with the tone of the report that we do here on our live streams, we call it the rundown, and we have the topics that we're going to go over. And then we leave it to you. We'll have a question and answer session and go over that. So the first thing I really want to do is go over what I call my, there it is, my poll. And that was for Henry Ruggs. I put in a poll earlier this week, and why did it switch off? I don't know why it switched. OBS is acting a little weird tonight. Bear with us here. But first thing I did was put a poll out here. Who would you want to see fill that void from Henry Ruggs? Obviously, with the situation with Henry Ruggs, everybody knows about it, the DUI resulting in a death. Very terrible, and there's no words to really express it because somebody died and he did something very dumb. I already talked about that in a previous video, but as far as football goes, life goes on. Derek Carr said that best as well. He'll put his arms around him and love him, but he does have a job and he has to move on. And, you know, this team has to move on as well. So we need to find a replacement for Henry Ruggs, at least in the short term right now. And I put in a few options here. Zay Jones, who's currently on the roster, Deshaun Jackson, and Odell Beckham Jr., who have recently been released. And you guys voted slightly for Deshaun Jackson. Now, my take on this, I wouldn't necessarily mind this. He is 34 years old. Hey, Dominique, how you doing? Glad you could come on board here. We're just going over the rundown right now, if you guys just joined us. And the first thing we're going over is the polling results from the poll we put out earlier this week. And you guys voted by a slight margin Deshaun Jackson. Again, he's 34 years old. It's probably going to cost us about $1.5 million, $2 million to sign him for the rest of the year. I don't really mind that. We're about $3 million over the cap, or under the cap right now, so we could afford that. That wouldn't be such an issue with me. Also, it wouldn't be so bad to me if Zay Jones could kind of bloom in this game, and we'll talk a little bit about that as far as the offensive side preview when we get to that a little later. I wouldn't mind that as well. The only one I have issue with is Odell Beckham, and for a number of reasons. Now, they're saying it would cost us about $7.5 million to secure him for the rest of the season if we were to sign him. That's way too much. We'd have to juggle some salary cap. Like I said, we're about $3 million under right now, so we'd have to find some room there. And more importantly, the guy is not conducive as far as the locker room attitude. Honestly, he had issues with the Giants. He had issues in Cleveland. Now, I'm not saying it was all his fault, but still, this is the kind of guy I don't want to see. We already kind of tried that with Antonio Brown. I think we ought to avoid OBJ. Now, Deshaun Jackson, now he has lost a step or two. Obviously, he's 34 years old. His yards per catch kind of jumped up this year because he was on the Rams on that high-powered offense and a lot of weapons. Now, you could say, well, the Raiders have a similar type thing where they pass it around. So that would kind of work. I wouldn't mind it. But also, with this, it would be kind of, to me, it would be a short-term thing. Like I said, he's 34 years old. We'd probably keep him for the rest of the year and let him go. And this whole thing with Henry Ruggs, obviously it's a tragedy, but I would say silver lining wise, and I've talked about this in preseason videos last preseason, is that I didn't think we had a chance at Davante Adams. Now with this whole thing with Ruggs, and we're in a need for a wide receiver one, I definitely think will be major players in the Davante Adams sweepstakes next off season. So let's get on to what we first want to talk about here. Why does it keep doing that? It's crazy. Now, as always, we usually start on the defensive side of the ball for the Raiders, and I like to first go over the final injury report that's put out by all the teams so we can get an idea of who's playing, who's not. Now, for the Raiders, we're relatively clean this week. Hankins had that neck issue before, and it looks like he's going to be playing. Same thing with John Simpson. No issues there. As far as the Giants go, obviously, if you don't know, with the Giants, they had a rash of COVID-19 positive tests earlier in the week, and a lot of those were retested and cleared. That included Saquon Barkley, their star running back. Now, Saquon Barkley hasn't played in about a month. I think he got hurt in the Dallas game, and he's still suffering from that ankle injury. I didn't think he would be playing anyway, and that they confirmed that late Friday. He will not be playing in the game. That's kind of good for us. And honestly, it kind of makes sense. They're 2-6 right now. They have a bye week next week, and it would just, to me, it would kind of make sense to sit him down. I mean, it's good for us. It's good for them. So we're going to be seeing our old friend Devontae Booker, who we had on the team last year, probably a starting running back. So not too many other issues. Kenny Golladay, he's been battling an injury off and on all year, but he really hasn't shown up. He really hasn't been that star that he was with Detroit. So to me, that's not a big loss for them. Now, as far as this matchup goes, I took a long, hard look at this offense. Now, here are the stats here. Very kind of pedestrian, average type stats here overall. I'm not really worried about it. Now, they are 12th in passing. And I think it's kind of similar to the Raiders, where they really couldn't get the running game going this year with Saquon Barkley hurt off and on. He's only played 5 games. I think he's 3.6 yards per carry, which is very pedestrian for a superstar like that. And honestly, Daniel Jones, he has been sacked 17 times. That sounds familiar as far as a terrible offensive line. But the difference between Jones and Carr is for you Carr haters out there, Daniel Jones has only thrown 7 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. He only has an 86.2 quarterback rating, where Derek Carr is well over 100 on the quarterback rating. And he was second in the league. Now, he had the bye week. I think he's like 5th or 6th in total yards right now. But of course, all the other quarterbacks ahead of him have played an extra game. So still at least in the top 5 as far as yards per game. And the accuracy is not there for Daniel Jones either. He's one of the worst quarterbacks as far as accuracy. And his wide receivers aren't really helping him as well. They are second most in the league as far as drop passes. The only thing I'm really worried about as far as Daniel Jones is his scrambling ability. It kind of surprised me. He is 6th in the league in scrambling, and that means when he goes back to pass, he just starts running if nothing's there. We have to worry about that. But the first thing I want to talk about is the first key is this front four. Now, the Giants are the most blitzed team in the league, tied with New England and Mac Jones. And this is really indicative of not really respecting the quarterback. And I think I agree with that as far as Daniel Jones goes. He is not the kind of guy that really worries me. I mean, anybody can look good in a pocket. But the thing with the Raiders is, I've talked about this before, this front four, we don't need to blitz. We're in top 10 in sacks, and we're one of the lowest percentage blitzing defenses in the league. So that plays up to it. So we just got to do what we do. I'm not real worried about this offensive line. Nate Soldier, he hasn't been a name since he's been with New England, to be honest with you. None of these guys really worry me. So that's the first key. Do what you can do. This is very similar to the Eagles game. Now, the second one I have, and I put it here between Perryman and Abram. Now, I did mention Daniel Jones's scrambling abilities, but also Devontae Booker. You know, we let him go. He might want to try to make some kind of a statement now. We need these guys to come up and step up and make these plays, especially if Jones is running the ball. You know, I wouldn't mind Abram coming up and giving him some hugs right there, just letting him know, you know, you don't get to do that on this team. So I think, again, they have a lot of injuries here as far as the wide receivers as well. We talked about Galladay. They have a couple of there. I'm not really impressed with the Giants overall. They haven't had a good season, and this is the type of team that we should easily beat. And I'll get to what I think is going to happen in this game once we get to the offensive side. But first, I want to talk about, as always, we do go live at every halftime. We're going to be doing that this week against the Giants. So look forward to about 11:30 a.m. West Coast time. So that would be 2:30 p.m. East Coast time, since we have a 10 o'clock start on the East Coast game. We talk about the first half, and I encourage you guys to come out and join us. Now, as far as the offensive side of the ball goes, I'm real secure with Derek Carr right now. He's playing an MVP type level season. The last 2 games, especially without John Gruden, the play calling has been outstanding. And as far as this defense goes, I took a look at them. They kind of remind me a little bit of the Eagles and a little bit of the Denver Broncos. And I say that because they have an average kind of pass defense, and they have basically 2 guys that we need to worry about as far as the pass rush, and their run defense is terrible. So what I would say the first key to the game would be to get this running game going. We had an extra bye week. I'm hoping Josh Jacobs is near 100% now. Like I said, we had that extra week off, and that's going to offset a lot of this nonsense here. Now, Leonard Williams, it was one of the guys I wanted in free agency. We didn't get him, obviously. He has 5.5 sacks. Azeez Ojulari has 5.5 as well. This tandem kind of reminds me of the Hargrave Sweat tandem that we saw in our last game against the Eagles. And to negate that, we need to run the ball, kind of like what we did last game against the Eagles, where we had 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kind of kept them off the stat sheet as far as sacks go. And the other thing, obviously, would be the second key would be to get the deep threat going, get this receiving core going post Henry Ruggs. Of course, this is terrible, the whole situation, but Zay Jones can go deep as well. If we go out and get a Deshaun Jackson after this game, then so be it. But to me, if I'm Zay Jones, this is my time to shine. He's come in spot relief. He hasn't had a whole lot of playing time total, but when he has, he's made the best of it, you know, like the play in overtime against the Ravens. He's had a couple other pretty good plays. So I'm thinking between him and Renfro, I think those are going to be the 2 keys here. Darren Waller is also, because he's a superstar, he's an elite status, but one of the things the Giants defense does pretty well is play against the tight end. I believe they're in the top 10 for that. So again, this is kind of similar to the Eagles game. I don't think talent-wise these guys stack up to us. So as long as Rich Bisaccia has this team going, again, we're overcoming adversity with Henry Ruggs, and we have done it with the post-Gruden thing for 2 games. And I think this time, if we had Gruden here, I would be really worried about this game. Now I am not so worried. Again, we have to do the basics, not turn the ball over, be able to run the ball, move the chains, get the first downs, you know, time of possession. The penalties we're doing much better with. I'm not saying we're great with it, but we've been doing much better this year than we have in previous years. So I think if we do the fundamentals, we should be able to win this game. I would say by double digits. I would say by at least 10 points. So that's enough of me talking. I want to hear what you have to say about this game. What you think is going to happen. What do you think the score is going to be? You can put that in the comment section below. We'll go over that. If you want to talk a little bit more about other matchups you think we can exploit or you're concerned about, we can talk about that as well. Or if you want to talk about Deshaun Jackson or OBJ, we can talk about that. I gave you kind of my 2 cents on that. I think at this point, to be honest, I would rather see us get Devontae Adams in the offseason next year. Obviously, him and Carr have chemistry back in college. He's a great wide receiver. I think at this point, we should probably open up the purse. I would rather not. I'm starting to read the chat here, but I'll finish my thought here. So I would rather not spend any more draft capital, at least in the first round, on wide receiver, to be honest with you. I think the only position I would even consider would be something on the offensive line, and that's if Leatherwood is permanently at guard. I would look at a right tackle in the first round. Otherwise, I want a defensive player in the first round next year. So let's see what you guys write. Richard Kidd, good to see you here. You put Derek Carr for MVP. I'm going to have to agree with that. He's at least in the running. Now, you have to remember, the MVP has a couple facets now. It's going to be a little bit about popularity, but it's also the overall team performance. Now, we are 5-2, so we're at least in the conversation. Derrick Henry got hurt, and he'll probably be out. They're seeing at least of the rest of the regular season with that foot injury. He got surgery on it, so that's another candidate. Josh Allen's in the mix. Of course, Tom Brady, the way Tampa's working here. You could say Matt Stafford with the Rams, the way they're playing. Kyler Murray early on, but he got hurt as well. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. So I would say he's at least in the discussion. And I hope this really kind of shuts down the Derek Carr trading talk. We like I put out in other videos, we hear about this every offseason, and it never comes to fruition. It's like a bunch of clickbait nonsense. He is an above average quarterback to an elite status. I'm not sure. Maybe he's a second tier, and I've said that before. Maybe sixth best to maybe 12th or 13th. That's where he kind of runs, and honestly, that is good enough for us to win a Super Bowl. If we can get the defense going, and it looks like we have with Gus Bradley already. So very impressed with that. Let's see. Dominique 5 says, Damon Arnett is an idiot. Release this fool as soon as possible. I don't know what's going on with him. One of my priorities in the offseason is I'm going to be taking a look at our first round draft picks for the last few years. And I had a lot of head scratching during those picks, and I've shown that even with the last year live stream or last offseason's live stream with Alex Leatherwood. I was hoping for the best, but if you're going to pick that high, he needs to be at right tackle, not at guard, and putting Brandon Parker there and hoping for the best. That's nonsense if you're going to draft him that high. And the same thing with Cleveland Farrell. After the draft, they were comparing him to Nick Bosa. They were even. Both of them, Gruden and Mayock, said that. So I think that was a bunch of nonsense when I heard it, and I said it, and it's coming true. I mean, if that was the case, what would this defensive line be? I mean, we wouldn't even have to have gotten Yannick Ngakoue, to be honest. We'd have Crosby and Cleve Farrell. Sandy B says, I think they got this one. They still seem to have problems in the second half. They need to keep their heads in it, just in my opinion. Yeah, the problem with the Eagles game last week, they kind of put their foot off the gas. They were up 30-7. Everything was going well, and they just kind of played conservative and let them get relatively close. I mean, like I said, the Eagles got a garbage touchdown at the end. I wouldn't really call that. They won by 11, but really it was more like 17 or 18. Johnny Storms Beats, good to see you here. Raider Nation, big game tomorrow. Just one big. It is. It's a big game. Well, every game's a big game because, I mean, we got a logjam, especially in the AFC. And this division is not settled. And I wouldn't count out the Chiefs yet, to be honest with you. I don't like them, but, I mean, something's going on. Obviously, that offensive line with Mahomes and getting Orlando Brown didn't solve the situation, but I can't count them out. I mean, he was still flinging it and trying to win that Super Bowl last year. I didn't think he would, but there's always a chance with that guy. So we have to take every single game. And honestly, a coach like Rich Bisaccia, kind of a leader type coach, is great. And then you have him backed by those two coordinators that are doing a great job right now, Greg Olson and Gus Bradley. So DC for MVP. Yeah, DC for MVP. I agree. Put it in the chat if you agree DC should be MVP. Put it in the chat and put what are your chances are 1 to 5 that he will actually get MVP. 5 being he's absolutely going to get it, and 1 that he has no chance of. Let's see. Johnny Storm Beats also says thank goodness for Crosby. Yeah. You want to hear? I was looking at the cap space because I wanted to see where we stood with like OBJ and Deshaun Jackson and etc. One of the weird stats I had was that Max Crosby's making less money than Brandon Parker. And I was like, what? He's making about $1 million less than Brandon Parker is right now. So at some point, we're going to have to give him big money. Next offseason, we're definitely going to have to re-sign Derek Carr. That's going to be big money. I'm hoping that with the seats being filled now, that the salary cap's going to bump back up so we have the money. And then probably go after Devontae Adams now. If somebody was saying that before, and I was saying there's no way we're going to go after him, given I said unless Ruggs and Edwards flop miserably, then we'd go after him. But given what's happened, I mean, it makes sense all the way around. Dominic 5 says, personally, I would like OBJ over Djax, but we'd absolutely have to have one of them. Another thing with OBJ is if we go after him, then we're not going to have the money to get Devontae Adams, and I'd rather have him. And OBJ, he's had attitude problems. Like I said, there's been problems. Cleveland has problems of its own. I think it's stemming at the head coach level, and Haslam's not a very good owner, to be honest with you, especially with that whole Hugh Jackson debacle. They went 0-16, and I remember watching that 0-16 game, and Jimmy Haslam, the owner, came in right after and got on the mic and said, he's going to be our coach for the next year. I was like, what? It just even if you felt that way, you just don't come out and say it like literally right after the game. It's like a clown show there, you know. Maybe they can hire John Gruden if, I don't know if that would be politically correct, but he would kind of match it, to be honest with you. And I've said before, and I got a lot of heat from the Gruden lovers. He was holding us back, to be honest, and it's kind of showing. It really is. The play calling, especially the last 2 games, has been absolutely masterful between Greg Olson and Derek Carr. Very little issues as far as play calling, in my opinion. You could say the conservativeness when we got that big lead in the last game, but other than that, it's been pretty good. Johnny Storm Beat says big November. It is. It's a huge November. You know, we got the Bengals. They kind of got humbled by the Jets the week before. We'll see if they can bounce back this week. We got them coming up. We got the Chiefs coming up, of course. Their backs are against the wall. And of course, we got the Cowgirls on Thanksgiving night. Or probably afternoon. I think it's the second game. But that's going to be a very difficult game on a short week. So it's going to be a big November. I'm hoping that this is the kind of game. Again, if Gruden was coaching, I'd be really worried about us falling flat on our face like we did against the Bears. No offense, Sandy, but we should have won that game. Let's see. Sandy B says, look how good they've done without Gruden. Without him, Gruden, that is. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's the offensive side. The defense has been about the same, to be honest. I was thinking around 20th for the defense where we're going to finish, and they're up in the teens now. So they're exceeding my expectations. I was a little concerned about how everything would kind of gel and fit, and Gus Bradley's done a great job. He's gotten a guy at every level that he wanted. He got Yannick. He got Denzel Perryman at linebacker, and then Hayward in the secondary. So he's got veteran guys he trusts at every level, and all those guys have been performing. I mean, Perryman, I believe, before the bye, he was leading the league in tackles. Hayward's number one ranked is corner, and then Yannick, he started a little slow, but he's kind of turned it up the last game or two. So it's good to see that. And a lot of people were kind of critical of Gus Bradley as far as the signing, and I was like, no, this is the kind of guy we need. Way better than Gunther. Gunther's a joke. Gunther is an absolute. That was a nightmare. and Gruden should have fired him after the second season. Statistically, our defense was worse, and you can go back and look as far as yards. We were worse when he left, after he got fired, than when he came on to take over the team 2.5, 3 seasons. Let's see. Sandy B says, they never show the girls. I wish they would. I watched a show on how they would try out. Grueling. Are you talking about the Raiderettes? You can go to Raiders.com. Let me take a drink here real quick. You can go to Raiders.com and they have all sorts of videos and things of that nature too, not just on the field stuff. So if you want to take a look at that, I would go to Raiders.com. You can see that. Sandy B says, prediction on a final head coach. Honestly, you said no Cowboys. Are you talking about the Cowboys cheerleaders? Oh, the Cowgirls. You can elaborate on that, but I'll answer your question. Predictions on the final head coach. I could totally see Rich Bisaccia being the permanent head coach with the staffing in place. If we at least make a run in the playoffs, I would say we'd have to win at least one playoff game for that to happen. And honestly, I wouldn't mind it. This is not a bad setup, you know. I kind of like Gus Olsen's play calling. I can't deny it. It's leaps and bounds. This offense looks way better than it did before with Gruden, and the defense has already taken steps up. It's already taken, to me, a step and a half up in 1 year. So Gus is doing his job, and you know, we're gonna have another draft. Probably more defensive guys. Maybe a DT would be nice. He deserves it, right? So far, he does. Again, this is a lot of drama to take in, you know. Not just, you know, the Gruden and the Ruggs, and yeah, I talked about it in the Ruggs video. Josh Jacobs had a single car accident where he was suspected of DUI right before the season started, and that was kind of swept under the rug. And it really kind of bothers me that Ruggs didn't learn his lesson. And I'm hoping, because, you know, I bet you know, maybe 1 out of 10 this happened, you know. So I'm thinking there are other players doing the same thing. I know it's Vegas, but I mean, come on, guys. Get an Uber. If you do one or the other. If you want to drive, then drive, you know. They have track courses to do if you want to. Supposedly he was going like 156 miles an hour. There's no need to do that even if you're sober. It's ridiculous, but they have tracks to do that. These guys have a ton of money. If you want to go out and party and drink, get a limo. You guys have the money. Go get a big limo. Drive around the strip. You know, there's no reason to be drinking and driving for anybody, to be honest with you. So. And I'm hoping maybe, because I'm sure he wasn't the only one doing it on the team, so I'm hoping other people that might be doing it stop and see what happened and how he ruined his life. He's going to be going to jail, and he killed somebody and ruined obviously killed them. Their life's over, but their family, they're going to be scarred for life of the girl he killed. And there's some kind of gruesome details. I'm not going to get into. I saw some details of what happened that night, and I'm not going to get into that, but it's pretty bad. It's terrible. I couldn't see my daughter, you know, kind of, you know, going through that. But anyway, I don't want to go into that. Tesla investor, good. Thanks for coming on in. Have a bad feeling the Raiders will lay an egg tomorrow. That's an option. And like I said before you got here, or before you typed that if Gruden was coaching, I would definitely be hugely worried about this game. Seriously worried about this game because he didn't prepare very well this team, and the adjustments weren't there. So I think this team with Bisaccia is going to be better prepared. You never know, especially with this thing happen with Ruggs. You don't really know what's going to happen, but I expect more from this team. Tesla Investor also says, what's a fair punishment for Ruggs? Well, I'll leave that to the justice system, but I would say certainly, I think the mandatory is 2 to 20 years, I heard, for DUI with death involved. It's mandatory, so I'll let that play out. I'm not going to, get into that too much, so... yeah, you said that again. So that's my answer. I'll let the courts decide it. Obviously, it was a stupid decision on his part to do that, to be driving drunk, to be going over 150 miles an hour on a residential street is a stupid thing as well. Just a lot of things. It's unfortunate, and it's just terrible all the way around. Dominique 5 says, it wouldn't surprise me if they did lay an egg tomorrow. I give it about a 20% chance that's going to happen. With Gruden, I would have probably said about 80% chance, to be honest. Let's see. So, anyway, I really don't want to talk about Henry Ruggs and what happened. There's plenty of information out there if you want to go seek that. I looked at it myself, and I'm kind of regretting that I did. I got to see some of the details of what actually went on and how things played out during that. So I would advise against it. I would rather talk more about the game tomorrow and any possible replacements at wide receiver we could find, at least in the short term. I'm hoping Zay Jones kind of breaks out here. You always hear how hardworking he is. Everybody says it. Derek Carr says it. I'd like to see him get his opportunity. He didn't do a whole lot in Buffalo when he was drafted there. Now that could be a little bit on him. Maybe he's a little more mature now. He takes things more seriously. He hasn't really gotten the opportunity here because he was behind Henry Ruggs, and he basically would go in, as a relief, give him a break for a play or two. So, and Zay Jones does have the wheels. We've seen it before, so let's see. Look at the car, and okay, I want to talk about that. Dominique 5 says, hopefully we see two tight end sets. Yeah, I want to see what Waller does. I mean, it's been 3 weeks removed since he's been on the field. He didn't play in Philly. He's had the bye week, so I wouldn't mind that. If we're going to be iOS, Saquon Barkley's playing tomorrow. No, he was designated as out unless the final injury report came out Friday, and he is designated as out for the game against the Raiders tomorrow. And honestly, it makes sense. Why bring him back that quickly? This team's not very good. Like I said, they're 2-6. They have their bye the following week, and then they got to play the Buccaneers. So I fully believe they're going to be 2-8 after that game. So, and I think we should win this game probably by at least 10 points. This is going to be a similar to the Philadelphia Eagle game, in my opinion. Similar type talent. I think we can pass on them. We can run the ball. We ran almost 120 yards against the Eagles. I think we can do something similar here. The weather report in East Rutherford is very appealing for us. It's like in the mid-50s at game time. No, partly cloudy, I believe. No rain. 3 mile-an-hour winds. I know Giant Stadium, it can swirl a little bit, but I think it's very advantageous for a passing offense. I wanted to take a look at that as well. Obviously, we had our issues last year in Cleveland trying to throw the ball because it was basically like tornado season there or something. It was insane. We kind of escaped with a win there. Let's see. Okay, anybody have any other questions? Anything you guys want to discuss, talk about? We'll, if not, we'll kind of close this out. And remember, we will be live doing the halftime live stream at about 11:30. Again, once we go to halftime, I'll come on. It's usually about an hour and a half after game time. The game time starts, and we have a 10 o'clock game here on the East Coast, so it'll be about 11:30 my time, East Coast time. And about, that would translate to 2:30 East, 1:30 Central. Oh, thank you for coming, Tesla Investor. I appreciate you guys coming in. I appreciate you guys supporting the channel. And we will see you at halftime. Thank you very much. Whoop. I'm having some problems with my OBS tonight, if you haven't noticed. Thank you guys for coming on in. And as always, go Raiders.
Something with all the distractions that you have off the field, how are you able to keep focused on winning football games as you do and do throughout the years?
When you have great coaches, then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization.